Good afternoon, Lake Stevens Schools, and welcome to the Swimming in Tech Hangout for Monday, April 2015. Let's get right into it. Segment 1, the Google Apps Freestyle. This week, Phil Biggs will be talking about conditional formatting and the cool new tools available in Google Sheets. Phil, take it away.
All right, thanks, Chad. If you have not been keeping track of all the updates that Google's been doing in Google Apps, and that's pretty hard to do because they come at us fast and furiously, the whole area of conditional formatting has received a huge facelift in the last, I'm not even sure when it is, 6 weeks or so. So I have a spreadsheet here, and I'm going to just begin to experiment with this just a little bit, and before I give away the farm. So this threw me back. A couple of weeks ago, I went in to do some conditional formatting on a document, and I highlighted my cell, and I went up to Format, Conditional Formatting, and couldn't find anything. Nothing popped up like it used to. It used to get a little window in the middle of the screen, and you could create these rules on it. It's all changed now, and all for the better, because they've made it look like an add-on, made it look like everything else, and Google's quest to make things simple and easy for us. So I've got a column of numbers here. The first thing we're going to try is, I'm just going to show you how to do it with a real simple thing. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a new feature in conditional formatting called color scales. The other thing that you can do is you can do your whole column at once now, where it used to be that you had to do one and then copy and paste that down. Now you can just select the whole column. And to get to conditional formatting, we always go to the Format menu, go down to Conditional Formatting. And what it happens is we have two choices now. We have single color, or we can use a color scale. And with a color scale, it will just automatically try to go from one color to the next, figuring out what the minimum, what the lowest number is and what the highest number is, and make changes based on that. And so going from green to white doesn't really make sense for us, because we always use red as our low color, and we use green as the high color on that. So you can see that we got okay in here, but that doesn't look like anything that we use in the district. So as I was playing around with this, I realized you can come in here and we can change the number. So we can say the number 1 is red, and then we're going to pick a midpoint. And really, a midpoint can be, especially on a 4-point scale, there really is no middle point, it's 2.5. We're going to go ahead and say our midpoint is yellow, and then all of a sudden that starts to look like the scale that we use in the district by using these custom scales on this one. And by making the 1 and the 2 really tight, we keep those, and then we get gradations on the green from there on as we go on up there. And then again, then at that point you can just kind of play around with it and say, what color of green do I really like in there? And it will make the differences for you. Now, you can, you don't have as many choices on this one as you did before. Like, you can't really come in and make the font a different color and things like that. But it is a really fast, easy way to create those gradient colors or those scale colors that you want on that one. So in the same token, I came over and I said, well, what happens if I try to set up a scale if I have a percentage? So I want to say, let's just say I've got the standard 60 to or 61 to 70% is or probably 60 to 69% is a D, 70 to 79% is a C, you know, the standard old way that we used to grade on everything. Still useful, because we do have a lot of things that get converted percentage, and that's how we figure grades. So as I was doing that one, I decided, I wonder if I just came over here and highlighted those, and we'll add another rule. I can still do the same thing that I did before, but before it was really tough because I couldn't see the changes happen, and I had to do one cell and then copy it to the rest of them. But now I can do the whole thing. Now I can come in here and I can say, hey, if it's greater than, and if you know the rule of this, you always say if it's greater than the highest value first, Oops. And then we're going to pick our color for that. So we'll say maybe bright green. Anything that's in the A range at that point. We can add another rule. And notice that we're adding it to this range, not just the thing. So I'm going to say if it is greater than, find that. In this case, we'll say if it's greater than 80, because that would be 81 to the 90. We'll make that be, what do you say, orange? Nah, it's not that bad. Let's make that be yellow. I'm going to say done on that one. And notice I'm just adding up some more rules here for this particular range. So I'll say the next one would be greater than 70. We'll make what, maybe that one should be orange. And you'll notice that with this one, we have an option to change text color and make things bold, do a lot of things if we want to. We'll say done. We'll add another rule. We're going to say if it's greater than 60, this will be our D. And this probably ought to get kind of pinkish because this is not really where we really want kids to be. So we'll make that kind of be a pink color. And on our last rule is if it's less than, better say 61, right? So we're going to say done with this one, add a new rule, and we'll say if it's less than, we'll say less than or equal to 60. That color is going to be bright red. Now, it's kind of hard to read, so let's go ahead and make that text color white. And if we come away, you can see that we've got a nicely formatted, but we did it all in one spot. We didn't have to keep going back and forth. And there's a lot of guessing that goes on when you can't actually see it. We got to see the changes as they went through here. No, and the other thing too, now notice if we click anywhere back inside, oops, I didn't say done. If we click back anywhere inside the range, it gives us all the rules inside that range. And if I come over here, here's my color scale. I can click on it. I could edit it. So I can say, oh, really, I messed up here. I really like blue as my high color. So now I've got, and you can see there's a lot of contrast. So blue is now, or 4 is now blue. So there's a lot of things that you can do with this one. And it's really nice having this, what looks like an add-on over on the side. When I'm done with it, I just click and put it away on that one. But if I click inside it, go back to format, conditional formatting, I see everything there. So it's everything's organized and saved for me. The last thing I always want to show you is, if you haven't seen one of these before, this is what's called a spark line. It's a little mini chart that can drop right into your a cell of your spreadsheet. And all I'm going to tell you is it's a function, and it uses the function is called spark line. And if you type that in, it's going to give you all sorts of information. But if you work with data much and you're interested in these kind of really cool ways to present data, so this would be like, this would be a little mini graph for your whole assignment as you look at that. And as I change, so if we change that 25 to a 68, you can see that it will change almost immediately on that one. So pretty cool, called a spark line. That's your challenge for this week if you want to go figure that out. All right, Chad, let's go to module 2 here.
Yeah, I'll give you a chance to catch a breath, but not more than that. Segment 2, diving into search, you've got a quick tip on using Chrome history to monitor students' Chromebook use.
I do. One of the greatest things I've heard this year was from a tech lab teacher in Conway. And she told the group that one of the best ways that best methods that she uses for tracking or just letting kids know that she's keeping track of what they're doing on a Chromebook is to walk up next to them and casually ask them if she can grab their Chromebook for a second. And then she will do a Control H to look at the history of what that child's been doing on a Chromebook. And it's really simple. The hardest part is just picking up the Chromebook. When you've done it, you do a Control H. H is in Harry. So let me just show you what that looks like. I do Control H. This is the history, and you can look down and see these are, you can pretty much see what I've been looking for today. So this is everything I've done today, all the searches that I've done, all the web pages I visited. And it keeps like about 3 days worth on here. And I wasn't on this computer on Saturday and Sunday, so you don't see much for that one. But you can also see that these are the searches that I've done. So there's a search. So it's if you walk up and one of your students says, "Oh, this showed up, and you know, I did a search on the history of George Washington, and then this girl in a bikini showed up," you can say, "Let's take a look, see what you did your search on." And when you see that he did the search on something you shouldn't, it's pretty simple and cut and dried at that point. And remember this, if you look at the top of the history, you can see that every device that this was on. So this is my computer at home. Check my calendar before I left this morning. This is a Chromebook, and then some of these, I think this one is a Chrome base out in the tech lab. So there's, depending on what device you're in, you can actually keep track of many different devices and the history that's going on. So the last question you might ask is, but what if they go in and erase the history of that? Another really great teacher in the district that I know that uses Chromebooks really effectively tells her students if the history is empty, they're in just as much trouble, because that means they're trying to hide something. So basically, kids get the idea that just leave the history there, and you can really quickly come in and see that. If you pick up a Chromebook and the history is completely empty, that's a pretty good indication that something happened as well. So Control H, it's a good trick.
All right, thanks, Phil. Pretty confident having your history up there on YouTube for all to see.
Yeah, I thought that was. I will say I checked it beforehand.
for sure. No searches for George Washington in bikini on there. I saw. Yeah. I was looking for that one. All right.
And that's kind of an extended version of yours last week on keywords, because you know you get what you search for.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm up now with the third segment. This is the long course, and we'll be talking about Actively Learn. It's an online reading platform. We're going to be splitting this up into 2 halves. You'll have to come back next week. Little teaser this week. You have to come back next week to see what it looks like from the student perspective, and then that's really where you're going to be excited about the tool. But we'll whet your appetite about Actively Learn today. This is an online reading platform similar to Subtext or Curriculate, if you've used either of those. I've used them both, and right now I'm at April 20th, 2015, I feel like Actively Learn is the best option right now with its ability for you to upload your own texts or grab texts that they have as well, and with the dialogue that you can have with students online. So let's just get to it. You can go to activelylearn.com to access the tool, or they do have a Chrome app. If I go to my apps here and click on the Actively Learn app, it is completely free. They have a free version, and not only is it free, but it does integrate with Google Drive. So as an elementary teacher, perfect for me, because I can just have my students go to activelylearn.com or open the app, and they just sign up using their Google account, and they're in right away, no information grabbing, etc. So I'll click the sign in button for myself. And I've already signed in with my Google account. This is kind of your start page as a teacher, your getting started checklist here. And they do have a pro version. They are adding a lot of functionality every week. They are a local company out of Seattle, which is great. Had a chance to meet them at NCC last year in Seattle. And just a really exciting product. But I don't have the pro version, and we can talk more next week about some more of the functions in pro, but let's just look at what we can do with the free version today. So in this tool, you can utilize the lessons that they already have created with texts that they have available, or you can upload your own texts and create your own assignments. I'm just going to jump into creating an assignment so you can see what's possible with this tool, and then we'll talk about how to get your documents and texts up here. So I just uploaded a tall tale that I wrote last year as an example called Brad Brown. So I'll just click on this text. I uploaded this as a Google Doc, which is how you are going to want to do that, because as a Google Doc, the Actively Learn will recognize each word, and you can do some powerful things with the word recognition, because you can embed questions right at certain points in the text, and also you can get definitions for individual words if you upload using a Google Doc. So let's just get started. So I've got a document, and I want to start asking or have my students answer questions as they're reading this document. And so if I just highlight a portion of the text, I've got a number of options that I can do with that text. So I can start by inserting a question right here, and if you insert a question, students will have to answer the question before they can move forward in the text. That can be a great thing, but you always want to make sure that you are inserting the question after all of the evidence that you want the student to find for that answer, because it will block out the rest of the text and they will not be able to continue without answering that question. I can also just insert a note that I want my students to see as they're reading this passage. It will show up on the right-hand margin. I can insert a link. So since this is a tall tale, I might want to insert a link with maybe a link to a YouTube video about what a tall tale is, or a video of another tall tale, or just a link to a web page, maybe defining what tall tales are, showing the characteristics of the genre. I can also white out some of the text, which I see this option. I think it's just to get rid of something if you don't want something to show up for whatever reason. If I choose to insert a question here, I've got three options. I can include a short answer question, or a multiple choice question, or a poll, which I really haven't done a lot with. I've usually stuck to the old short answer and multiple choice options. Something that's come up recently is that you can also select standards right from Common Core to go with each question. And I believe this tracking is available for Pro version, and so you can track students' performance on individual questions by standard, which is another neat tool that they've added. So I can just ask some short answer question that I'd want the student to answer before they moved on in the text. You can see also, after you've typed the question, you can add other media, URLs of images or videos to actually help the student answer the question, which is fantastic. Just click done, and oh, this is telling me that I haven't tied it to a standard. Yeah, I'm sure I don't want to tie it to a standard right now, but thank you very much. So when the student pulls this up and reads this, they'll only see this first paragraph and this next line. They won't see the rest of the text until they actually answer this question. What does a multiple choice question look like? Well, let me see, find a word that I might want them to define what that word is. Oh, and now it's giving me a little notice that I might want to space my questions a little bit longer so that there is a little more continuity in their reading. But right now, this is just a demo when I add that question. So multiple choice, really easy question. And then you can insert as many choices as you want. I don't know. I can't come up with a great Pioneer synonym right now. And then you can add as many choices as you want here, and then click Done to insert a multiple choice question as well. Now, one other thing, or some other options you might have seen when I selected just one word. If I select blazing here, I can also, you can't see that, I'm just joining. I can also choose to define a word. We're seeing this definition come up here because we have the Google Dictionary extension enabled here, but you can choose to have a word defined, and it will define it using, they have a Merriam-Webster definition tool that they use. In the student view, which we'll see next week, they have an option to have the word read to them as well, if they're struggling with a certain word. So maybe I can show you inserting a note in the text. Here, if I just want to insert a note at the very beginning of the text, and full of a tall tale. It's a video of Paul Bunyan for another example. I can select a category for this note if I wish. I don't want to at this point, and then I can add some media. I'm just going to pull a Paul Bunyan YouTube URL over, and I can post that. Now, this will show up for students in the margin as they're reading, and this is something that if I want all students to be able to access this without stopping their progress, this will be available throughout the entire text, and they don't have to do anything with this certain note before they move on through the text. So students can then also comment on your notes and have discussions, but again, you'll have to come back next week to see the student view when you'll really see the power of this tool. So adding questions, adding notes, that's what you do as a teacher after you've uploaded a specific file that you, or text that you want students to read. Anything for Phil, a little pause point, anything else that I've missed?
No, I just love the idea that if we're going to work with, well, the power of a digital text versus a printed book or a printed page, in that you can insert yourself as a teacher into that reading when the student needs it. It isn't they read it and are totally confused and get frustrated and walk away. Now you can give them all this background information, like your examples of a tall tale. You could there's all sorts of help that you can do. You can kind of figure out where students are going to have a problem and insert things there. It's like this whole idea of digital text is so powerful if we can just figure out how to capture it.
Yeah, you really have the opportunity to provide the scaffolding for the student, but there also is a discussion piece that is built in. So of course it's always best when you're having a live discussion, you know, face to face, but if that's not possible, you know, this might be the next best thing, to have students be discussing the text while they're reading digitally and pinging their ideas back and forth digitally. And this tool does allow for that, but again, once we get to the student view, you'll get to see a little bit more of that. So adding content, I'll just give you a quick walkthrough, not a full training, but just up here you can add content. You have a couple of options. If you have an article in mind from the internet, you can click here and just paste in the URL, and it will do its best to pull in the article right from that site. And it's pretty good at, you know, stripping out the ads and all the other content. But you know, the cleaner you can get the page, the better. Using a Google Doc is the best option because that gives you the ability to insert your questions right in the middle of the text, right where you want the question to be inserted, and it will make the program will make the student answer before they can move on to the text. PDFs do work, but basically they actively learn to sees the PDF as an image file, and so it doesn't recognize the individual text. So the ability to highlight individual words or lines in the text go away, and you can insert questions throughout the text, but they have to be at the end of every page. At the end of every page of the PDF, so it's not as powerful. They do have a tutorial in Actively Learn for taking PDFs that you may have and using Google Docs optical character recognition to actually put that PDF in your Google Drive and open it as a Google Doc and have Google recognize the text within that PDF. It takes a little cleaning up to do, but if you've got a great PDF that you want to use for this, I think it's worth the effort once you get used to how that optical character recognition works. Selecting texts from their catalog. Their catalog is always growing, and some of the texts already have questions with them. You can import those questions, or you can decide to write your own. For example, I see the road not taken here from our good buddy Robert Frost. They have some standards highlighted. I'll just preview this lesson before I actually select it. And with the preview, you can see that they have some notes that they've already put into this lesson. Some questions for the reader to kind of help the reader think carefully about the text as they're reading. So, and then they have an embedded question. They even have a video here of Robert Frost reading his poem that they've linked in from YouTube. So you can just grab this as is and assign it right to your class if you like. And if you select that, you can, that will grab the whole assignment, or selecting here without the assignment, just selecting the text, and then you can write your own questions as well. So that's pretty cool that they have this library as well.
And some of those cost money. Is that right, Chad? How do you know if they're free?
Yeah, I haven't. I have not found out where the cost is on any of these. I'm looking quickly, but all the ones that I've used have just come up without any without asking for any payment. So
I have heard that a lot of them are free. They're actually just beginning to bring in some of the rentable, I guess is the right word.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, the ones that I was testing, I haven't used one that for my class. I've always uploaded my own documents, but we can look. I can get the answer for you next week.
Homework.
That's right. That's right. So that is what you can do as a teacher with this tool, creating the questions for students to answer independently or for discussion, also giving them scaffolding and other media as they're reading to help them with their comprehension. I also want to show you some of what is available with the Pro version. So with the Pro version, this is where you can collaborate with your colleagues and share assignments that you create. So that's when you really get some power, when you're working with your teammate or even hopefully across schools where people are sharing their assignments, so you're not having to create every single assignment in this tool. But that's available in the Pro right now. Then you can also co-author and collaborate on assignments, similar to what we're used to working in the Google Docs environment. Again, viewing student performance by standards, Lexile level, you get richer reports with the Pro version. Again, next week I'll show you what kind of student data you get after we show you the student view and what students see as they are reading texts. But this is, go ahead.
I'm kind of intrigued, Chad, with that personalized for each student, as you look at differentiation kinds of things too.
Mm-hmm.
That's intriguing.
So again, maybe this could stretch into 3 weeks, and I can start the free trial, and that could be our pro version on week 3, and see what else we can do. But that's it for the teacher view. You know what you can do from a teacher perspective. Come back next week to see what it looks like from a student's perspective.
So one of the other things that's always attractive to me when we talk about making or using digital text effectively, Chad, is Kelly Guilfoyle was telling me that one of the biggest issues, and I've heard this from principals too, and teachers, is that it isn't about giving dumbed down text to kids who have struggle with reading, and it's usually in a content area. It's about making that text accessible and usable to those students. And I really think that Actively Learn is one of the first really good tools that I've seen that you can build those scaffolds inside enough to help them really understand what they're trying to read.
Right.
I remember back in the oh gosh, it was the early 90s. IBM came out with these books that were basically, and we're talking $1,000. It was on Laserdisc. Remember those days? And it was doing the same thing that Actively Learn is. It's just that it was canned. You didn't have the option as a teacher to bring your own in. Now all of a sudden, here's these free tools that you can build probably way better, because now you've got this interactivity. I'm excited to see the discussion.
Yeah.
That's what you call making text accessible without dumbing it down. And I think that's really one of the most important things of this tool.
Yeah, what the exciting thing, why I'm kind of bummed that I can't bring the student piece to you this week, is that the students also receive immediate feedback as they're answering the questions. Of course, they'll get immediate feedback when they answer a multiple choice question. It'll tell them right away if they're correct or not. But even with the short answer questions, usually a student can't get immediate feedback until the teacher responds. But when a student answers a short answer question, they then get to see the other students' responses to that question. So they might not know for sure if they're correct or not, but they can see if they're way out in left field or if they're on the right track when they see other students' responses. Yeah. They can also, if they really don't understand a portion of the text, they can put a question up for discussion and open up to the whole class right there as they're reading and saying, hey, can someone help me with this piece? What do you think is going on here? And students love to help each other, and I'm sure it'll be a mad dash of 10 students to answer that student's question. So I love that piece, that they're still not left on their own when you let them when they're working on Actively Learn.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's really powerful teaching and learning going on.
For sure. So that brings us to next week, and screen share again. Oops, excuse me. Now I'm sharing my, here we go. Try that. And there we go. Next week, we will be back Monday, April 27th for our next meet. Until then, enjoy the great weather. Have a great week.
All right. See you next week, Chad.
Mm-hmm.